Hello, good evening, and welcome to today's edition of Politics 101. We are in the first week of the year, and already things are heating up. We expected this year to be a decisive year for our country, and we are seeing signs of the politics no let off from 2021 on the part of the government, which continues to go down the path that we saw for 12 months and more. And of course, if there is going to be no let up on the part of the government, there should be no let up on the part of opposition to what the government is doing. Welcome down to Politics 101. You, everybody knows what we have to do. We have to share the link. London is in the house. We know people from all across Guyana, all across the diaspora, in our Caribbean, Barbados. Barbados is going to have elections in a couple of weeks. Mayor Motley has called a snap election there. So this month, we're going to have elections in Barbados, of course. The Barbados Labour Party, led by Mayor Motley, got all of the seats at the last election, and one member crossed the floor to become the lone opposition. But for all intents and purposes, the Barbados Labour Party won all the seats and at the last election. And it's just over 3.5 years since Mayor Motley came to power, and she has already called election, a snap election there in Barbados. You're going to see how that goes. From all indications, if the Labour Party were to retain power, it would not be with all the seats at the last time. Just the trend of our politics in the wider Caribbean. Here at home in Guyana, we have our own issues that we are grappling with. So please share the link and let others know that Politics 101 is on the air. Last night we had the bad boys, as the PPP call us, Ben Sharp, Duncan, Amsterdam, and Burke on last night, and we had quite a conversation. And we're going to do that from time to time, where we bring those who are behind the mic, bring them in front of the mic for us to have a discussion among ourselves. Good evening to everybody. Good evening. The Christmas season came and went, and the New Year's came, and we're off with a bang. Good night to you, Albert Morgan, from number 51 here in the quarantine. Good night to you, Paula. Good night to you, Sheila Collis Walker. Karen, welcome. Good night, all of you, and welcome down to Politics 101. Tonight, as we come on here, we are seeing some news headlines over the last couple of hours. President Ali tells Guyanese not to panic as the country records its highest number of COVID cases in a short period of time. And the president is saying to the Guyanese public that they should not panic. We recorded some high numbers over the last 3 days. The last count says that it's almost close to 1,000 new cases of COVID-19 over the last 3 days, and the president is telling the population not to panic. Now we're having all of this as schools reopen on Monday, and then looking at Village Voice News here that says 65 teachers, 44 students hit with COVID. And this is in the first 3 days of the reopening of schools. And there's a new item here. The CEO of the Ministry of Education calls Christchurch students waste and tell them to hell with COVID. Breaking news. Breaking news. We've seen here that the GNBS rejects large quantities of substandard goods that are coming into the country. On the party side, Geeta Chandan Edmond appointed new PNCR General Secretary. And those are the breaking news in the last couple of hours. We are going to be talking about some of those issues in the news. So we are back to COVID-19. We're back to COVID-19. After a lull for a couple of months, we're back to the issue of COVID-19. And we had in the August leading up to school opening in September, we had the issue of the vaccine and the government trying to force people to take the vaccine. And that was toned down. And now as we come to the new year and the government says that they're opening schools, they're reopening the schools for the students to go back face to face. Accompanying that is this news of a massive spike in the COVID-19. Now, I have said, and I continue to say before, that natural disasters, floods, COVID-19, these are not issues that should be politicized in a partisan way. You can have a rise in COVID-19 under any government because it can be triggered by circumstances beyond a government. And I don't like to place those things at the feet of governments. Same thing with floods or hurricanes. I think those things should be left outside of partisan politics, because those things are natural disasters. But we live in a very hyper-politicized society in which political parties politicize everything. If, for some reason, the COVID-19 pandemic and the numbers of people being infected and the fatalities go down, the PPP would take credit for it. That is the reality of the issue. So although one may say that one should not politicize COVID-19, the fact of the matter is that if the government of the day, or if the COVID-19 situation were to improve, the government of the day will take credit for it. And so by that very logic, if the COVID-19 situation worsens as it has now, the government has to take credit for that too, by your very logic. And you have to, because the government has rejected all offers to make the pandemic a national issue that should be overseen in a bipartisan way. They have not included the parliamentary opposition. They have not included civil society in the management of the pandemic. And so therefore, like everything else, the PPP government is monopolizing it. The PPP operates on the philosophy that in a majoritarian system, once you have the majority, never mind how slim that majority is, never mind how tenuous the situation is, the PPP monopolizes all the space. And if you monopolize all the space and you leave civil society out, you leave the political opposition out, then whatever goes wrong in that space, by your very logic, you have to take responsibility for it. And so as we see this spike in the pandemic, we have to put it at the doorstep of the PPP. Not because we want to place it there, but because the PPP, by its very mode of governance, is saying that we are large and in charge. And if you are large and in charge, then you have to be in charge of all disasters that are occurring under your watch. So here we are. Just in COVID-19. We have to say that there's something about the management of this pandemic that has gone wrong. We know that this pandemic is deadly. We know that the scientists, the experts have told us about all the things that need to be done in order to bring the pandemic under control. The question is whether the PPP government has heeded the advice from the experts or not. The children are back in school, face to face. Face to face. They're back. And as I said, we have seen the numbers here, 65 teachers, 44 students hit with COVID, and this is the first couple of days back in school. The question is, should the children, should they be back in school in a situation in which the government seems not to have any comprehensive plan of how to deal with the COVID-19, how to deal with what we have been told will be a new surge. But I can tell you as a teacher, it is better to have students in the classroom where you're dealing with them face to face, where you're able to teach in a holistic way, where you're not teaching to blank screens, you're not certain whether the children are there or not. There are challenges with distance teaching. Even before the pandemic, we have had online teaching, and there are challenges with online teaching. I can tell you that as a teacher. There are challenges in teaching virtually. So it is better to be in the classroom. But in the context of a pandemic, and in the context of a situation where the government has refused to bring the teachers union in to a partnership to deal with this pandemic, it is a risk, always a risk, having children back in the classroom and having teachers there. Our society, our country is split on vaccination. Some teachers have gone ahead and taken their vaccines. Other teachers, like other members of the wider society, are skeptical about vaccine and have not done it. Now, that's a whole new conversation that we've gone over. The fact of the matter is that we have a country that is split like all countries. Opinion on the vaccination is split. So that's a big challenge there. The government not bringing in the unions, not bringing in civil society organizations, not bringing in the opposition into management of the thing, that's a problem there. We are a small third world country, as they say, and we don't have the kind of inbuilt health infrastructure and that's a problem. So we have several problems as we deal with this pandemic. We just had a new strain, and we are hearing about a newer strain in the last 48 hours or so. So as a society, we are not equipped to deal with the tremendous public health challenges that come with COVID-19. And if you want to err on the side of caution. As I said, it is better to teach face to face. I say that as a teacher. But in the context of a pandemic, err on the side of caution. Because you're talking about lives, people's health. And yes, it is better to teach face to face. But if teaching face to face puts the teachers, the students at risk, on the side of caution. Our government has apparently decided to err on the side of arrogance. And if this news story in the Village Voice is correct, then that arrogance, my charge that they've decided to err on the side of arrogance is justified. The Village Voice story I want to read for you. The headline, CEO allegedly calls Christchurch teachers waste, says to hell with COVID. Chief Election Officer Marcel Hudson is reported to have told the teachers of the Christchurch Secondary School that they are waste, and he downplayed their fear about the surge in the COVID-19 pandemic. In a press release on Wednesday, Guyana Teachers Union said it was informed by staff and students of Christchurch Secondary School of the unacceptable behavior at the school by the Chief Education Officer, Dr. Marcel Hudson. The report stated that the Chief Election Officer screamed at teachers, saying, quote, "To hell with COVID. Teachers at the school are waste." This is what the Guyana Teachers Union release is saying. The union wishes to ascertain whether the abusive words uttered by the CEO are the ministry's position on teachers who are out amidst the COVID-19 pandemic, doing their best under these circumstances. The GTU condemns the abusive behavior in the most in the most robust possible way, and urges the CEO to return immediately to the school and publicly apologize to the staff and students who bore witness to his unacceptable rantings yesterday. We expect an officer of Dr. Hudson's status to treat teachers better, since he's a product of the school system and ought to do better. Further, we demand that the school be closed immediately to facilitate testing and sanitizing its environment. The CEO's instruction to have the school remain open breaches his own COVID-19 protocol issued in 2021. That is the news story from the Village Voice. So it seems as if in the first couple of days of school, schools around the country, Christchurch is one, they are reporting cases of COVID-19 infection. And they may have called in the chief elections officer. And he's telling them to hell with COVID and that the teachers are a waste. Now, the news story is reporting what the union says. One would imagine that in this day and age, the union would have had a recording of the CEO statements. You know these things? People have their cell phones, they're going to record these things. So if the union is going to take that position and make it public, the union must have in its possession a recording of some sort of what the CEO said. Now, the CEO is not a political person or should not be a political person. And the union is correctly asking, is the CEO's position the position of the ministry and by extension the government? We don't know. We weren't there. We have not heard a recording. I want to make that clear. We are going on what the union has told the media. If what the union is saying is true, it's outrageous. It is outrageous, and it needs to be corrected. If what the union is saying is true, it needs to be corrected. First of all, to call teachers waste is really outrageous. The kind of sacrifices teachers make all the time to hold our education system together. I know teachers who have to, I don't have to tell you all the story. Teachers have to find their own tools to take to school, spend their own money, from meager wages. And in the case of the pandemic, working in a risky situation, and you're calling them waste? But it speaks to the level that we have descended to in Guyana. And then more than that, you're saying to hell with COVID. So COVID doesn't matter. This is the same ministry that was fighting teachers to take vaccine in order to ensure that everybody is safe. So I am pro-vaccine. So I am not opposed to ministries and governments asking people in a public situation to be vaccinated. However, you can't want to talk on both sides of your mouth. You can't want, when it suits you, say COVID matters. When you want to tell teachers take the vaccine, you say COVID matters. When teachers are saying this is a risky situation, we should not be here, you tell them to hell with COVID, it doesn't matter. See, this is the kind of totalitarian environment that we live in, where the government wants it both ways. COVID does matter. But it must always matter. It mustn't matter when you think it matters. The teachers are saying COVID matters. There is a rise in the cases, a steep rise. And you are now telling them it doesn't matter. Double standards. And this is the kind of governance that starts at the top of the politicians, and it seems to be now trickling down to public servants, in those who are in high position in the public service. I repeat, I have not heard or seen a video where the CEO is making a statement. I'm going by what the ministry said. And I'm saying that if the ministry goes out there and accuses the CEO of making these statements, I would assume that they have the evidence. If they don't, and they make such a statement that was not made by the CEO, then the teachers union should apologize to him. But I don't think the teachers union is so irresponsible that it will make a charge against the CEO when it's not true and they don't have the evidence. That is what we have come to in this country. So I want to stand this program, Politics 101, standing on the side of the teachers. Teachers should not put themselves at risk, at further risk, and put the students at risk. And we know the spreading. Those teachers have to go home to their families. Those students have to go home to their families. They may have people there who are more at risk because of preconditions. At a minimum, I join the union in saying that the schools where we are seeing a rise in cases of COVID-19 should be closed immediately. No ifs and buts about it. That's how you deal with a crisis. You don't say to hell with it. You take emergency measures. And if Christ Church is a secondary school is a less, close it down. And all schools where you're seeing these numbers, 65 teachers, in a small country like ours, in a small teaching population, 65 teachers is quite a lot. Quite a lot. Quite a lot. So I would like to join. I would like to join in support of the teachers union to close down Christchurch School and all other schools. And that the CEO, if he made those statements, should clarify and should apologize not just to teachers and staff, but to the country. Because he holds a position of authority. Sisters and brothers, as I said, this kind of behavior starts at the top among the politicians and it seeps down to the bottom. We're going to be taking some calls tonight, and I would like to hear your views on this matter. This is 2022, and there shall be no retreat. No retreat. As you would have heard on the program last night, the brothers have different views on this issue of people taking what is being dished out to them and not responding. It's a worrying issue, a worrying question. In other countries, less than this, bring people out in protest. And I understand that people feel let down by a society, a population that appears to be numb to what the PPP is doing. I have a slightly nuanced view, as I said. I think protest and resistance is something that is much more complex and much more nuanced. I think our society isn't protest. Our society is resisting. Then people are not on the streets. They don't have placards, but I am certain that they're resisting. I'm certain that people are doing things. Resistance comes in many ways. There are scores of ways to resist. And I'm sure people are resisting in their own ways. But sometimes, we political people tend to be impatient. We want the revolution to happen now. We want everything to happen right away. But my experience teaches me that things are always percolating. And it is that thing that triggers something. And then people take to the streets or whatever else they do. And then we say, but where they were all the time? No, they were resisting quietly all the time. So I am not put off because we don't see these overt forms of protest today, tomorrow. The fact that somebody reported to the union what Mr. Hudson says, that is resistance, that's protest. That's resistance. that's protest. The teachers there could have heard Mr. Hudson said that and just said, shrug their shoulder and go home. But no, they had the presence of mind to report it to the union. That's resistance. Remember, with the George Floyd thing, it was one little 17-year-old girl with a cell phone that took that picture. And that then triggered people to come onto the streets all across the world. So I am not that pessimistic, and I want to urge people, let's work, let's keep working. The government went to the extent of issuing a warrant, an order for Rickford Burke. If Rickford Burke was not igniting protests and resistance among the population, they would just say, leave him alone, let the jackass bray, as Eric Williams used to say. But no, the PPP knows that the Rickford Burkes of this world are making it difficult for them. They would like to close us down because they know about the effects of protest and resistance. And so let not our hearts be troubled. Let our hearts be troubled. Let us not feel that we have to see people in their thousands out in the streets before we are convinced that they're engaged in resistance. 2 morning more, as I said last night. 2 morning more. What people said, 2 morning more by 2 morning more. We have to continue to work on all fronts. We have to continue to work on all fronts. On the front of education, information sharing, analysis sharing, mobilizing. We have to work on all fronts. And it will come together. It will come together. Human beings are not robots. We have to believe that human beings are rational. And if we believe that human beings are rational, then we must believe that they understand what's happening and that in the fullness of time, hopefully not too far away from now, people will manifest the quiet resistance that is happening behind the scenes. So I just wanted to make that point there. I want to talk on another issue, the issue of Brother James Bond, and the video with him welcoming his friends into his community and distributing resources, and I think him holding an umbrella and so on. I was on Boxing in morning time yesterday morning, and I don't know if James listened to what I said, but I understand whatever was reported to him, he seems to think I am one of those who, and I didn't do so, and I'm not about to do so. I'm saying that the issue that is presented by what James did is a very complex issue. And I think it is not about James Bond or anybody. I can tell you, as I said on that program, I am approached constantly by people of all ethnic groups, business people and others to give assistance to my village, Buxton. And I understand the sensitivity of it in a heightened racial environment. The optics of business people of one ethnic group sharing things out to people in the other ethnic group is bound to get a reaction. I'm surprised that James is surprised that there was a reaction to it. I'm surprised because I know James is much more politically intelligent than that. It is not the act, it is the act within the context of what's going on in the country. And I am telling you, if I were in James' position and then, you know, in Guyanese brother, business person approached me to give some assistance to the village, I would say, brother, we have to do this thing differently because of the political environment. I'm not rejecting your offer. We have to do it a little bit differently than for you to come in there and appear to be giving people things and so on. It is bound to have a reaction. I would not have chosen that path, and that's what I said. I'm not condemning James. I'm just saying that I'm surprised that Brother James is surprised that there is a reaction. It means that he's not paying sufficient attention to not just the immediate thing, but the larger. In fact, people sometimes get, I know, impatient with the supporters because sometimes I talk too much about the big picture. But if you don't understand the big picture, you could get the small picture wrong. It might be better for James to say, look, boy, give me the examples. And then let me and the people them in Melanie, let's call a party for children and let's distribute the hampers. Nobody has to know where the hampers come from. You say, well, there were donations from well-wishers of the village. But the minute you let in an Indian businessman, then you are provoking the underlying, coming just after what Ramson said. So the problem is not James Bond. The problem is the political environment that makes it difficult for some businessman of another ethnic group to come in and sharing things to Black people. It ignites. You have to understand these societies that we live in. I remember when the PPP decided to make Mr. Jagan the presidential candidate. I knew right away, I think I was on a radio program, and I said it aloud, I said, oh my God. Because I knew that it would ignite a response on the part of Black African Guyanese. Because it's what you call historical memory. Certain actions triggers memory. But Marley said, every time I hear the crack of the whip, my blood runs cold. You see, if you don't understand the psyche of the people, you are surprised that you get the response. No, absolutely nothing is wrong in a businessman going into a community and distributing things. Nothing is wrong with that. Under normal circumstances, that would cause no problem and should cause no problem. But in our situation, given the nature of our politics, it becomes a problem. And we can't wish it away. Which is what I think Brother James seems to be surprised It's there. When people say, yes, there's what? It's there because we live in racialized society, in a racialized society. And that is why these things have to be handled differently. You see, we cannot ignore the nature of our society, and as political people, we must understand the nature of our society, because it will then inform how we move and how we act. And I think that's where the debate has come with what Brother James, you know, has done. You have a government already treating half this population, Black people, as though they're second-class citizens. That government is grounded in the Indian Guyanese community. That government has, over the last year, pushed Black people to feel that they are being shoved right back to the plantation. That's the reality. That's the reality. And then now you have an Indian businessman coming into the community and sharing out things. People are not wondering whether that Indian businessman is PNC or PPP. What they're seeing is the optics. And as I pointed out yesterday, you are not seeing Black business people going into Indian communities and sharing out hampers. You are not going to see that. You are not going to see that. The Indian ethnic instinct would not allow that. And that is why you don't see it. It's the truth. I told an Indian brother who, when I made the call for Black people to shop in their communities, he said, but David, Indian people, you don't find Indian leaders saying that. I said, because they don't have to say it. They've conditioned their community to shop in their community. Nobody has to tell them that. But because of the nature of the Black communities, we have to tell Black people that. It would be better for me not to have to tell Black people to do it. But given the circumstances, you have to tell Black people to do it. Indian communities don't have to deal with Black or Amerindian businessmen going and share things in their community. It just wouldn't happen. It just wouldn't happen. And it's not the question of hampers. God knows people need the things that are in the hampers. So the question is not the hampers, it's what the hampers signify. That's where the issue, and I think Brother James should grapple some more with that. It's not the hamper, he's right. Or that politicians must give things to people. It's called clientelistic politics. And usually politicians would give things to people in exchange for votes. They used to call it in the old days roti politics or sardine politics. And we have to be very careful with that. Sometimes it's better to do things in a certain way. In my village, we do a big to Buxton in station times. And we get donation that people of in the village, out of the village, some of them not African Chinese. But they will tell you plain they don't want them to be thing. And so it is the manner in you give resources to a community. People have given us boats for farmers in our community. So I am not opposed to business who are well off. They should be spending our money on businesses. Conscious environment. And that's, you know, it's last year. And I hope I can find some time for you and I to chat, you know, because I think he is obviously surprised, and he should not be surprised. He should not be surprised. It's not what he did. It is, he shouldn't be. As political people, we have to read the environment. In order for Geeta Chandan, the new General Secretary, Aubrey Norton said last week that it would be a young person on the slate. And I thought would be either young Sandy from going to the blacklist, has it an area there, or Geeta Chandan. And obviously she got the nod. A woman, an Indian Guyanese. Some would say the optics are quite right. But no big change because she's replacing another Indian Guyanese woman. So it's really kind of continuity. She's a young woman. She's fresh to party politics. And perhaps that is what is needed at this time. Some people will say your general secretary should be someone who knows the party well, who knows the party ins and out of the party. And some people would argue, as they are arguing, that that model has led to all kinds of problems in the party. And so it's good to have a young, fresh person. I would like to hear your views on it. Is she general secretary? You know, I'd like to hear your views on that. We'll be opening on the phones in a couple. We'll be glad if the operator can put the number on the screen so that we can, or people can be ready when we begin to open up the phones. 592-604-972. Of course, the piece carrying on about this mace that was removed. And again, is the inconsistency of their arguments. If removing the mace is this big crime, then you are in effect saying the mace is the most important thing. You are saying the mace is the most important thing. So when the opposition is saying the mace was not there and so the bill is not properly passed, you say, oh, that's not important. But when you're ready now to, hammer the opposition, you're saying the mace is important. So either the mace is important or it's not important. The PPP wants it both ways. But I'd like to hear your views on all these matters. Call us as 5592-624-9722. We're opening up the phones now. 592-604-97. If the mace is important, then agree with the opposition that the mace was not there, it was snatched away, and the bill is not properly passed. The law is not properly passed. If you're saying it is not important, then if people snatch it, why you all set an eyes? But anyhow, if we have a caller, let the caller come through.
Go ahead, caller.
Good night, Dr. Hinds.
Good night.
Hello? Good night, Dr. Hinds. Happy New Year to you. I just a parent, I'm calling concerning this you reopen of the school and the teachers. I am just wondering if there's any special package in case the teacher gets sick on the job or get infected. Is there anything they have in place for those teachers?
Not that I know. I think the union has been trying to get the government to put in place such an arrangement, and the government has not met with the union to agree on it.
Okay.
It has not yet.
So,
I'm going to try tomorrow to get
They're not taking no responsibility if by chance there's a breakout and several teachers get infected.
No.
Hello?
No, there is no responsibility they're taking.
What's wrong with these people, man?
It's the kind of commandist attitude of the government.
Yeah, from the time this thing started, I remember going to the school to collect some textbooks, and they had this paper they want you to sign if you're in agreement for school to open or reopen. So I asked the question, is there any mechanism in place to protect the student if they have anything on record? And the teacher said no, so I just signed again. And I think parents need to be more serious because when your child gets sick, I mean, it's going to dump on you and you won't left with it.
Yeah. That's the situation there. I'm going to try tomorrow to see if we can get Coretta McDonald, the General Secretary of the Union, to come on and to give us an update on the situation.
All the parents is concerned, right, about the children and the teachers, because the teachers have to teach children, and if the teachers them start to get sick and drop out, but then the children would have nobody to teach them.
Right.
So have to put necessary measures of precaution, and they have to give them some kind of warranty of a package in terms of if something goes wrong, well, they will have X amount of finance to deal with the sickness and take care of their family. Like, that would be fair to me.
Yes, I agree with you. Thank you for coming through. 592-604-9722. The caller raises an important point there. What is in place for these teachers and students on risk? And this is what we keep saying. If you are reopening schools in the present environment, you have to have an overall plan. This is the thing in this country. They just do things without any comprehensive plan. And putting people at risk and then calling them waste? Oh, no, not at all. Not at all. Let's hear from you. 604-9722. Let's hear your views. And I think parents need to let their voices be heard. Parents have to let their voices be heard.
We have a caller.
Go ahead, Connor.
Am I on?
Yes, you are.
Yes. Good I got the thanks. I would like to say two quick things. What is going on in Guyana is very sad. You know, it's a sad state of affair. Everyone is actually behavior is actually like, you know, you're singing for your supper. No one wants to bail the cat. You know. So I can't see how things will get better. And the PPP knows this, know the advantage that they're taking, and it's been accepted by the teachers. Now, I don't think a situation like what we have, the COVID, that the union supposed to be with a bead and a spoon with a little bowl and porridge, feeding the teachers them to let them know that this thing is dangerous. Yes, teachers are supposed to go public servants and supposed to wait for the union. This is natural common sense. We're seeing the danger. Get off the job. Everyone have to coordinate with each other. Get off the job. There's nothing that the government could do about that. They can't tell us they will all are fired. We fired us when you replace us. It's simple as that. You know. And the union automatically will have to act. If they don't want to, definitely they will have to act. You know, but it's a different story back home. Nobody wants to build the cat. They want the cake and they want to eat the cake and they want it also. So I don't know how that's gonna thing. We are concerning now with the James Bond. I think everything what you said here, I said the same thing. James Bond should have known how to handle that situation with that guy coming into his community. And I think he have that knowledge, but Mr. James Bond is portraying and his behaviors yesterday feel everything with the type of videos them that here. That he's very arrogant and he seems to be a selfish person. Now my question is why Team Mohammed for all the years didn't see that the black community grows such a conscious suddenly grows such a conscience that he is so interested in the well-being and welfare of the black community. And particularly in Region 4, an area that the PPP is concentrating to break up. So to get away during elections. These are all questions you have on those asked in mind. So what really if Mr. James Bond is not thinking in that area, then well the question, what is there for Mr. Mohammed to gain from this sudden love or interest, you know? Mr. James Bond should know that, but listen to me, this is what is going on, and just what you said. If you are willing to help out my area, Melanie, this is how it has to be. You understand? It is very sensitive right now with what is going on, particularly after now we can't settle this election issue. So give me the stuff, I will do. I don't think Mohammed would have won that. I don't think he would have won that because he have a purpose for being in those community. You understand? And that brothers nonsense is just distraction. That's just distraction. Just trying to distract the issue. So that is my take on the on both sides, the teachers and James Bond struggle. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for coming through. Good. Thank you very much. The number is 592-604-9722. And as the caller said there just now, why this sudden rush coming to the community to share things out? What is the objective? Those are all legitimate questions. It's the environment that we're in, and we have to pay attention to the environment. Mr. Mohammed may have absolutely nothing to do with the PPP. But I am very sure that the PPP is going to use what Mr. Mohammed has done as part of their narrative that the PNC and the opposition has done nothing for the Black community, and other people have to come in and do things there. I am sure that is always going to be spun. And that the politicians in the Black community do not want other people to have access, to that community. Right. See, we as I keep saying, we have to look at the situation when we're making political moves. Something in one situation could have one effect, and that same thing in another situation would have an opposite effect. So 604-9722, come through and let's hear your views on the issue. Yeah. Come on, caller.
Yes. Good afternoon, Dr. Hinds.
Yes. Hello,
are you hearing me?
Loud and clear, go ahead.
Yes, I am.
Yes, I'm good afternoon, Dr. Hinds, and all the viewers. Now, I'd like to touch on a few things. The first one has to do with the school situation. I don't understand the likes of it. How can you have school reopened for everyone to be in the classroom when you don't have the facility and the infrastructure set up to have these kids properly looked after in the classroom, health-wise? Initially, the PPP said COVID was real. Now, guidelines are dropping in all directions. And this
the holiday routines,
school where they have nothing in place to maintain the livelihood of these kids in the classroom, as well as those teachers who are taking all the chances to go to the classroom to teach. I saw a video this morning where some of the schools in Linden were so appalling in terms of its physical appearance and the situation for health, to keep the kids healthy. And I couldn't imagine schools are opening either. Even the big United States, they have all these facilities in place, but yet, when they go to the classroom, the school environment and things aren't up to scratch, the unions order the schools to be closed. They put the teacher on trial till hey, you can't go in a situation like this and have people kids the teacher, and they actually close the school like in Chicago. How could Guyana, which is considered a third world country,
we seem to have had some grips there, and I think
Guyana is a country out of this world, and I mean so literally. You have an administration that is ruling with hatred, so they can be loved to no one other than those people who are their basis. Put it that way. They do not engage the opposition, nor do they engage the unions. What countries can now become? They want to do everything as a party. They just start next one party only. No one else matters. Something has got to be done in Guyana. These kids can't go to school, and then on top of the bargain, you have this guy who's the CEO.
Seems having some glitches.
What we heard.
This is Politics 101. Miss Operator, are we on?
We're still on. Continue.
All right. It seems as though we're having some signal problems. We seem to be having some signal problems. We seem to be having some signal problems.
Please help keep Politics 101 on social media and broadcast television. If you are in North America, please donate via Cash App or PayPal.
If you are in Guyana and the Caribbean and don't have access to Cash App and PayPal, email your pledge to dhinds6106@aol.com and we will direct you how to get your donation to us. Thank you in advance for your donation.
Welcome back to Politics 101. I think we are back now. We seem to have had some glitches there for the last couple of minutes, but we are back on. We are back on, I think. And I know a caller was coming through, but we had some glitches there. We're back on. We're back on. We can take a couple more calls. We can take a couple more calls before we go off for the night. Tomorrow night, we're going to try to get a couple of lawyers on and somebody from the teachers union to come on so that we can discuss these issues. If we have one or two callers, we'll take you before we go off for tonight. We seem to have some glitches here tonight.
Caller. Continue.
Yes, are you hearing me, guys?
Loud and clear.
Yes, I was saying, Doctor, this CEO for the Ministry of Education, I guess by now he should have been a retiree, but I guess he was brought back there because the PPP knows he's going to do whatever they ask him to do. It seems like everything certain color black people does in Guyana must have economic consideration. Gone are the days when people have caliber, when people have a conscience and a heart, a decency. Everything must be based on money. What is Marcel doing there and make himself look like a low class individual? Why is he compromising his quality to those imbecilic foolishness he's doing at the Ministry of Education? To go and describe teachers in that dastardly way? Does this guy have a conscience? Doesn't it?
Well, it seems it's not getting better. So,
how can this guy be so callous? And just before I got cut off, I have said that Guyana is not a country in the universe.
It's not getting better. Our signal seem to be acting up this evening. So, I guess we'll have to call it a night and resume tomorrow night when we hope the reception will be much better. So until tomorrow night, I want to thank you all for tuning in tonight, and hopefully we'll continue this discussion tomorrow evening. Thank you.
Please help keep Politics 101 on social media and broadcast television. If you are in North America, please donate via Cash App or PayPal.
If you are in Guyana and the Caribbean and don't have access to Cash App and PayPal, email your pledge to dhinds6106@aol.com and we will direct you how to get your donation to us. Thank you in advance for your donation.